Welcome back to Act 4 of Deconstructing Directing, Text, Playwrights, and Dramaturgy. I'm Andrew Robler, the founder and archivist here, and I am so glad that you are here. We're continuing our journey through Act 4, which is all about the director's relationship with text. In previous scenes, we've looked at how directors interpret scripts, navigate stage directions, and honor copyright. But today, we're entering a slightly different territory. What happens when the text isn't finished yet, and the author of that text is sitting in the room with us? Unlike working on a published script where the boundaries are clearer, new play work blurs the line between interpretation and creation. Choices you make in rehearsal might not just change how the play looks on stage, they might actually change the words that end up in the script. That raises a whole series of questions. How do we build trust with the playwright? How do we offer feedback without overstepping? Who gets to decide what stays and what goes? And maybe most importantly, what do we do when we disagree with the writer? This is where collaboration becomes less like a contract and more like a dance. Both partners bring their own rhythm, their own style, and their own expectations. If one partner tries to lead all the time, the dance becomes rigid or even combative. But if both can listen, adjust, and respond to each other, the result can be transformative, not just for the play, but for everyone involved in bringing it to life. So why spend so much time talking about this? Why does the director-playwright relationship matter so much in new play development? First, because new work is the lifeblood of the theater. Every script we now call a classic was once a new play. Without directors willing to enter into the messy, exhilarating, sometimes awkward process of helping a play find its legs, those works might never have reached an audience. Second, because playwrights can't do it alone. A script on a page isn't a play, it's a blueprint. It takes staging, bodies in space, voices in the air, and audience reactions for a playwright to see whether what they imagined is working. As directors, we become the first audience who helps test drive their ideas in 3 dimensions. And third, because directors benefit too. Working on a new play gives us a rare chance to glimpse how a story is made, not just how it's told. We get to ask questions of the author directly, something we can't do with Shakespeare or Lorraine Hansberry. That access deepens our understanding of storytelling and often sharpens our own artistic voice. Of course, this also makes the relationship more delicate. A playwright's words are personal. They may come from lived experience, from grief, from joy, from imagination that feels deeply tied to their identity. Directors wield a lot of power in how those words are embodied, and if we're careless, we can wound not just the play, but the person behind it. So collaboration here isn't just nice, it's essential. It's how we honor the playwright's voice while also doing our job to bring the script fully to life. Done well, it can create an environment of mutual discovery. Done poorly, it can fracture trust and stall a play's development. So, let's get practical. What does it look like to actually build a healthy relationship with the playwright in the room? Well, I know I just used a dance metaphor. For the rest of the scene, I think it can be helpful to think in terms of construction. When you work on a published script, you are moving into a finished building. The walls are up, the plumbing is set, and your job might be similar to interior design, interpretation, lighting, and movement. But in new play work, the director is more like a lead engineer on an active construction site. The blueprint, the script, is being revised while the foundation is being poured. This requires a set of tools that most directing textbooks or classes simply don't give you. So let's look at these tools in the context of our flame paradigm as introduced in Act 1, Scene 1. We'll start with facilitation, which is how we keep the construction site of the rehearsal room safe and productive. To explore this further, let's expand on 4 of the SCUDS tools we introduced in Act 1, Scene 2. Specificity. Knowing how you like to work as a director is incredibly helpful here. Even better if you know how you like to work with a playwright in the room. But even if it's your first time working on a new play, specificity still matters. The more openly and honestly you and the playwright can talk about expectations, needs, and observations, the more effective your relationship will become. Taking time at the start of the process to establish shared goals and trust is essential. Curiosity. This is your most powerful diagnostic tool. When a moment or scene isn't working, try to avoid jumping in with a fix immediately. Instead, get curious. What are you wanting this moment to accomplish? Once you have more clarity around the goal, then you can more effectively suggest changes to the blueprint, or you may realize that the blueprint is fine and it's the execution in the room that needs to change. It's also okay to not know how to solve a problem, and getting curious alongside of the playwright can be a powerful sign of trust and collaboration. Utility. This tool is about defining the zones of the production. Have a conversation about the typical activities in rehearsal. Who gives notes and to whom? If there's an issue in the moment, how do you want the playwright to address it with you? If you have concerns about the text, how does a playwright want you to approach it with them? The who does what document in Act 1, Scene 2 can be helpful here, but remember that it doesn't have to be a one and done conversation. Your working relationship can evolve as you do throughout the process. Just be specific and open with each other about it. Status signals. In a new play, the status is often lopsided. The playwright feels vulnerable because their blueprint is being tested, and you feel vulnerable because you want to deliver a great show. Acknowledge this. Practice reckless kindness by signaling that you are on the same team. Next, let's talk about both the L and M of flame, specifically in the context of power. In Act 2, Scene 6, we talked about 6 types of power in the rehearsal room, and in this specific context, you can think of it like this. You hold expert power due to your understanding of staging and the overall work of putting a text on its feet, while the playwright holds informational power over the words and intent. A common mistake directors make is trying to win the room, afraid that if we take the playwright's suggestion, you look weak to the actors. True leadership is the ability to say, that's a better idea than mine. Let's pivot the infrastructure to accommodate it. However, leadership also means protecting the actors. If the playwright is constantly whispering to the lead actor, it creates static in the communication lines and can build resentment among cast and crew. While it's perfectly fine to allow the playwright to talk directly to the actors, it's important that you stay involved in all of those conversations so that you can help curate everyone's contributions in a way that benefits the entire production. As a general rule, I typically ask playwrights to pull me into any conversations they have with actors, or ask that all notes and questions go through me so that I'm at least aware of them. Next, let's talk about the A in flame, artistic insight and taste. When you read a new script, try to start by looking for structural integrity. Does the logic of the world hold up? Are the character motivations load-bearing? You aren't just looking for good lines, you're looking for the skeleton. In a new play, you have the unique opportunity to tell the playwright, I think this wall is decorative, but we need it to be structural, or vice versa. You're helping them see if their blueprint can actually support the weight of a live audience's gaze. The E in flame is education. In new play work, you are often mentoring the play itself. You're teaching the script how to be a play. You may also be mentoring the playwright, especially in community or educational settings, on how to work with a production team. Remember that rewriting is emotional labor. It feels like surgery. When you tell a playwright a scene needs to be cut, you're asking them to demolish a part of the building they spent months drafting. Be patient. Give them design time. Don't expect to rewrite in 10 minutes. Respect the time of the creative process. All right, so now that we have a few tools in hand, let's talk about how we handle issues that arise in a room. First, what happens when the blueprint and the build simply don't match? You think the scene is a comedy, they think it's a tragedy. You want a cut, they want an expansion. We use the desk script, which we introduced in Act 3, Scene 2, to maintain reckless kindness during conflict. D stands for describe, and we want to stick to observable facts, like, I've noticed that when we play this scene for speed, the actors are tripping over the technical density of the dialogue. Then we can express our concern and or inquire about their intention. I'm concerned the audience will lose the plot points. What is the structural necessity of this specific paragraph for you? Next, we can suggest and or solicit an idea for a solution. Can we run an experiment? Let's try one version with the text as is and one version where we lean into the silence. Let's see which one holds up the roof better. And finally, we can talk about consequences, not in terms of our personal relationship necessarily, but in the context of the work. If we keep it as is, we need to find another way to clarify the plot. If we cut it, we need to ensure that the emotional beat is covered elsewhere. Ultimately, if you cannot agree, the words belong to the playwright. Our job is to build the best possible version of their blueprint, even if you would have designed the floor plan differently. If you are unwilling to do that, then it may be worth discussing whether you should continue as the project's director. A few other reminders are worth mentioning when it comes to how we work with a playwright. First, prioritize the relationship over the product whenever possible. You might be working on the first production of this play, but there may be more opportunities, and this relationship might last a lifetime. Don't burn the infrastructure of trust for a single opening night. Second, advocate for keeping a change log. Giving a ton of specific notes all at once may not be helpful to the playwright. Collecting your observations and having a larger conversation about the state of the play once or twice a week might be more helpful. A change log can help you and the playwright stay on the same page in between meetings and as the play continues to develop. Third, use collaborative language whenever possible, framing things as an invitation rather than a mandate, such as, "What if we," or "How would it serve the story if?" This lowers defensiveness and demonstrates that you respect your collaborator and their perspective on the story. There may be times that it's important to make a statement rather than ask a question, especially when safety, well-being, or budget limitations are involved, but keeping those to a minimum is valuable. Working with a playwright is an invitation to witness the sacred origin of a story. It can be messy and confusing at times, but when you move from thinking about fixing a script to caring for a script alongside the playwright, you open up the possibility for a deep, meaningful relationship with a fellow artist that can last a lifetime. You are helping bring a new world into existence. That requires high regard, high transparency, and the willingness to stand in the dust of a construction site until the building is ready for an audience. And that is how we build collaborative relationships in new play development. As always, this content is truly and completely 100% free to you. If you find it helpful and can support it financially, please consider joining my Patreon. Just a few dollars a month helps me continue deconstructing the craft for all of us. I'll see you in the next scene. Until then, I challenge us all to be recklessly kind.